What's up, you guys? Welcome back to the channel. So I wanted to go ahead and kind of give an explanation of where I've been, where the Mini is, and why I haven't posted any videos for probably a solid, I don't know, year and a half now. So as many of you guys might know, if you followed me on Instagram, the motor actually blew up. This was back in September of last year. We were doing some racing on a private airfield at a mini kind of get together at this guy's house, and he just happened to be like a small planes pilot and had his own personal planes and airstrip out there on the place that he lived. So we got to do some racing kind of later at night, and I ended up taking home the trophy for fastest mini of the night. And that was pretty cool. So at that time, the car was making about 255, 260 wheel horsepower and just over 300 foot-pounds of torque. Full RPM stage 3, so full bolt-ons, catless downpipe, exhaust, intake. The only thing I wasn't really running that probably might have prevented this was methanol injection. And that was basically because I was kind of saving up for it at the time, and then got a little hasty on the racing that night, and the motor went. So I ended up trying to fix it quite a few times myself. I wasn't sure if it was a valve cover failure at the time, because oil did make its way through a couple of the ports on the valve cover. And I noticed one of my bolts was broken on the valve cover as well, so I was like, well, maybe it's just a valve cover leak or something. Basically the car would run, but it was running on 3 cylinders, and I didn't know it was really 3 cylinders until I ran a compression test a few days later. Alright, here's cylinder 2. Not freaking good. As I was saying, cylinder 2 was completely dead, and I wasn't sure if it was a valve ring or a piston issue. And so I did a couple things in my driveway trying to figure out what it was. I put a scope down the cylinder, and the scope was a pretty low quality scope. It was just like 20 some bucks off of Amazon, and ended up not really being able to see much of any damage whatsoever. I put Marvel Mystery Oil into the cylinder well, and I let it sit for a couple days because I wasn't sure if the rings had maybe been pushed and stuck into the ringlands on the piston. I've heard of that freeing up stuck rings, and I wasn't really hopeful with that because mostly stuck rings happen on motors that have been sitting for a while, not motors that were just racing. So I went ahead and did it anyways, and it made no difference whatsoever. I didn't want to mess with taking the intake manifold off to look at any of the valves. So basically the car just kind of sat for a couple months, and in November it ended up going to I can't even remember their name, but they make intercoolers and a couple upgrades for minis. They're actually like a really specialized mini shop in Philadelphia. I'm sure I'll remember the name here in a second anyways, but I went ahead and I took it to them, and they took the motor apart and found that there was basically like a crack and a hole going down the side of the piston. And I'm assuming the damage, I didn't see it from the top using the scope, not only because it was a low quality scope, but mainly because the damage was just past the very first set of rings. So that's why there was no compression whatsoever in there. So at that point, basically the motor needed to undergo a full rebuild, and what I ended up doing was I ordered brand new SuperTech components for the top end, SuperTech pistons, rings. So the entire valve train was going to be converted to SuperTech. The pistons converted to SuperTech. I believe, especially the one cylinder that was damaged, its rod was bent, and they said that the other 3 were slightly out of spec. So we went ahead and just did a set of OEM rods, because I wasn't really planning on going much higher in power anyways. I did want to reach the 300 horsepower mark, but the N18 Motors rods should have been able to handle that just fine anyways. So the car was with these guys. Oh, it's Helix Motorsports. You can look them up. They make intercoolers and stuff for the Mini. And so they had the car from November all the way to March of this year. So from November of 2018 to March of 2019, that's how long it took to get this motor rebuild done. And it was a very long and tedious wait. It costs a lot of money. And so the car ended up finally getting done, and after a long wait, I picked up the car and I drove it easy for a solid like 500 miles, if that. And that's when I started to kind of give the car more throttle, more RPM, build some boost. And I did do that in the early phases as well to get the rings seated. I wasn't doing anything crazy like full wide open throttle right off the lot from picking it up or anything like that. But after what I felt like was a good break-in period, and they assumed was a good break-in period, I went ahead and I started giving it, full throttle and full boost, and the car was breaking up really badly around 4,500 RPM. So it would go up to full boost just before 4,000 RPM, but for some reason, as it climbed in the revs, it would just start to break up extremely bad. I was getting like up to 8 counts of knock up top if I stayed in it. And so at that point, I mean, it was really unsafe to do any more kinds of pulls or anything in it. So I tried a few things. When I picked up the car as well, they notified me that the O2 sensor was throwing a code, and they weren't sure if it was the secondary O2 sensor, which it shouldn't have been because the tune is designed to eliminate the secondary O2 sensor because it's decatted anyways. And that sensor was never plugged into my pipes at all. It just hanged there so that the car knew that the sensor was there, but it didn't really rely on doing its job because of the tune. So I knew it wasn't the secondary O2 sensor, so it had to be the primary. So I went ahead and I bought a new primary sensor, and after fighting with that for a while, I got it out and put the new one in, and was finally able to read accurate AFRs at that point, because basically what was happening from when I picked the car up was I wasn't getting accurate air-fuel ratios on my gauge, because I used the Carista OBD2 adapter in the Torque Pro app, and it's pretty accurate on these cars. When you're running and data logging, the AFRs are pretty accurate because that primary O2 sensor is wideband on the vehicle anyways. So it would always stay like 15 flat. It would never change when the O2 sensor was bad. So I put the new one in, and I was actually getting like variable AFRs at that point. And I noticed what was happening on my data logs was the car would run extremely rich, actually more rich than normal. And then when it would start to misfire, it would go back and forth between being rich and being lean. And I talked with the guy that tuned my car, and he actually told me there were a few other cars in the US that N18 motors, when they had their heads messed with, so i.e. putting the valves in there and all that good stuff, that they weren't acting right after they got out of the shop, and they weren't sure why. As far as I know, and from what I've gathered, the N18 is very finicky when it comes to airflow, because it's also using the Vanos system on the intake side of the valves and not just the exhaust side like the N14 does. So I guess when the head had been messed with, the computer's Vanos system kind of throws a fit about it. It's not sure what to do with extra airflow or not enough airflow. So what I ended up doing at that point was I thought I had faulty Vanos solenoids, so I ordered new Vanos solenoids and threw them in. And the car did run a little bit better, but not once it hit that upper RPM range in full boost. And it was just breaking up again. So I was at a loss. I was very frustrated. I didn't have any more money to throw at this thing. I didn't want to throw any more money at it either. And I mean, I love that car to death, but it just wasn't working out. And some of you guys know from watching my previous videos, you've seen me in uniform. I'm active duty military, and I was getting ready to PCS. I just moved from the East Coast all the way out to the West Coast. So that's why it's so bright in my face right now, because I am in California, and it is just extremely bright and sunny all the time. Not that I'm complaining. At least I don't have to deal with snow anymore. But so with the upcoming move and everything, I had to make a choice. I had to say, you know, am I going to bring this car with me and not know if it'll ever run right again? Or, you know, can I do something to maybe get out of it? So what we ended up doing is our original family car, which was a 2013 Camry, was paid off, and my Mini still had a lien on it. So what we did was we went to a Volkswagen dealership, and we found a 2016 Tiguan 4Motion 2-liter turbo, and decided that, you know, this could be an upgrade for us from the Camry as far as, you know, height, space, a little more utility type use from the hatch style of it. So we went ahead and we traded in the Camry, which helped kind of negate out any negative equity in the deal whatsoever with the Mini Cooper. And so I got, you know, close to 20 grand for both of those cars. And so it paid off. It paid off the Mini, gave us a little extra to put down. We put some money down and we walked away with the Tiguan. So right now we only have one vehicle, and it's the Tiguan. I'm not gonna lie to you guys. Things for us right now aren't even financially the best, so I probably won't be messing with the Tiguan at all. You can tune it. You can get like an APR tune. You can get intake exhaust, that kind of stuff, to make it a little more fun. I wouldn't do anything obnoxious with it because it is our family car, but it does need some help in the power department. It needs just a little more grunt, especially torque. I think just throwing a stage 1 APR tune on it would make that car just beautiful, like what it should be from the factory. So I'm not really sure what to do with the channel anymore. I did buy a motorcycle when we got out here. I bought a 2005 Suzuki Katana 750, and I had it for about 2 months, not even, maybe a month and a half. And I ended up just selling it earlier this week because me and my wife kind of decided that we needed to focus our money elsewhere, kind of get our debts paid down, get our money right, and kind of, you know, do things that are best for our kids and our overall quality of life right now. So as far as mini content goes, there's really no more to do. I'm really sorry that the channel has gone this way and that it's over. As far as mini content goes, I'm still thinking of ideas, what I could do in the meantime until I can figure out, you know, a possible new route that I can go with this channel. My plan was actually, when I had the motorcycle, to begin moto vlogging and doing kind of like, you know, maintenance and modifications with the Suzuki and whatnot. And I'm really disappointed because, you know, there's been quite a few people that have continued to subscribe to this channel and work my way up to 1,000 subscribers, which is when you start hitting monetization, and then, you know, beyond that, just more and more growth. And, you know, as monetization would start and anything else, you know, I could continue to have build the Mini, or, you know, build a motorcycle if I wanted to go that route right now, and just kind of bring in more content and do something that I love, because I love working on motors. I love working on cars. I love working on things with wheels and engines. You know, it's just what I've always been into, and you know, for it to kind of just suddenly go away, it just really sucks. So I'm kind of thinking of a few ideas to go with this channel. I might do a thing where I kind of go over my military life, kind of give you guys a brief background of what I do, how long I've been doing it, you know, my service history kind of thing. Nothing too in depth to make it like a threat to my own security or nothing like that, but just to give maybe some people out there who are curious about the military lifestyle and the jobs that we do, the things we deal with, and so on. I'm thinking about doing like a, you know, a vlog style thing with that. And then maybe in the future, after me and my wife get a little bit of our money situations proper, I do want to pick up another motorcycle and go from there. I'm thinking about waiting it out for like an FZ07, FZ09, or possibly the new CBR 650R. It's definitely going to be way down the road, especially right now with getting our finances and everything figured out. So, but I do really appreciate you guys that have stuck around, have either rewatched the content and used it for what it is, you know, some knowledge for your own mini build, or just, you know, seeing the cool things you can do with one of those cars. And I appreciate all the new subscribers. I appreciate anybody who might subscribe from this point forward, and like I said, hopefully I can figure out something here soon and make some more content for you guys. But until then, I'll see you all in the next video.